Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Sounds like this lady was fishing for discounts. Seriously, no pun intended. People who are doing this with butthole-ish aggressive force are trying to threaten you or annoy you into letting them save money. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Why should I water the plant? Cast. K equals Karen, me equals me, C equals colleague, M equals manager. So I work in a mainstream grocery store in the UK in the produce department. With that comes horticulture. So I and my colleague had been working non-stop all day, and we took a 5-minute break to chat to each other while the store had quieted down for a bit, when this lady, we'll call her Karen, walks up to me, plant in hand. Now for context, the plant was a little bit wilted since we hadn't had time to water them yet, and the lighting in the store doesn't help with the health of the plants. But nothing that a little bit of water won't fix. K. Ahem. She waits a few seconds, and again, but louder. Ahem. Getting both of our attention. Me. Yes, can we help you? K. Firstly, why is this fish cheaper than the other one? My colleague works on the fish counter. C. Because they're two different species of fish? Higher demand results in a higher price? K. Scoffs. Well, I don't care about the fish anyway. Look at this plant. It's dead. Me. I'm sorry, but the plant is perfectly fine. Yes, it may look a little bit wilted, but that's because we haven't had the chance to water them today, and K. I don't care how busy you've been today. It only takes you a few seconds to put water in the plant, you butthole. How hard is that for you to do? C. Stood there, dumbfounded. Look, if you don't like the one you have, go put it back and choose another that isn't as wilted. K. But I want this one. Can't you, take some money off it or something? The plant costs £3. Me. No, I can't do that. Like my colleague said, you can go and choose. K. Get me your manager. And while you're at it, I want the number for head office. Me. Okay. I go get my manager. M. How can I help you today? K then goes on to explain how much of an a-hole I am for not watering a plant and refusing to take money off the price of the plant. M. I'm sorry to hear that, but as OP said, he's unable to take money off of the price of the plant, but if you would like, you can put that one back and... K. I don't want another one. K then shoved the plant back into her trolley, shopping cart, scoffed and stormed off, presumably to go and complain to head office about how her plant wasn't discounted. Thinking about it now, I should have taken the plant off of her, walked to the faucet behind me, and just filled the plant completely with water and handed it back to her. That would have been funny. Also, I have no idea what the fish had to do with the plant. And our second story. My boss buys a guy out of his home. So I remodel and do property maintenance for a guy who owns a ton of property. Overall, he's actually a good guy and isn't your typical slumlord. He bought a second-floor condo for his girlfriend, which we remodeled prior to her moving in. We made a big mistake with the plumbing and ruined the guy's bathroom ceiling downstairs. I get it, he was rightfully upset, but we did everything we could to make the situation whole with no burden on him. The guy downstairs did everything in his power to make sure our work was hell. He would call the cops weekly for noise complaints, try to get the building inspectors involved to shut it down. He'd call the HOA, block our cars in with his cars. Just so much unnecessary crap, and I've heard through the grapevine that he's just a miserable jerk in general. Towards the end of the renovation, I noticed he would play music so freaking loud for hours, and he wasn't even at home. No biggie, we didn't care while working, but when the girlfriend moved in, it never stopped. So now my boss's girlfriend is living here, and the neighbor's still being a jerk with his music all hours of the day and night. Probably a month after this, my boss contacts the guy downstairs' landlord and makes a very generous offer on their condo. Well, they happily accepted, and once the miserable guy downstairs was informed that my boss would be his new landlord within the next 60 days, he promptly packed his crap and found another place to live. And our next story. Grad student told me to do things their way. So here's the context. Some years ago, I worked at a cruise ship doing souvenir photography. It was my second summer there, and we had a new manager that year that was finishing her master's in photography, standard, not digital. Pay was based on a group split commission, so if the day photographers did terrible but the night photographers did amazing, the day photographers benefited, and vice versa. My first year, the owner stopped by to train us and gave us specific instructions on how we should photograph guests and why we should be doing it, and saw an increase in sales as a result of it. The owner's been doing it for years and ran multiple locations, so I just listened and did what I was told. Fast forward to year 2. We have this new manager who'd not been trained yet, but only received basic instructions and was told to defer to the returning employees for things she didn't understand. For the first couple of weeks, it was fine. Slow start to the season, so sales, of course, weren't crazy. Come week 5, when night crews start, I noticed that myself and my only male coworker are both only being scheduled for mornings. At first, I thought, whatever, free at night, no big deal. I figured since the new manager was working with a returning employee, things would be okay for commission on the night cruise days. First week of night cruises goes by, and I notice I made drastically less than last year for the amount of hours I worked. I checked the sales spreadsheet. Every employee needed to update this at the end of their shifts, and noticed that day sales were the same as night sales. I ran up to the ticket office to check the passenger list for the days they ran night cruises, assuming there just weren't many passengers. Not only were there way more passengers at night than during the day, but I noticed way more waste. Second week, I have a split shift that overlaps with the manager. She pulls me to the side at the beginning of the shift and explains her expectations for photos. She shows me an example of hers and then shows me the one I took. She told me that the way I took photos was unacceptable and I had to shoot them the way she did. These photos, by the way, get put into 8x6 sheets and very small wallet-sized photos. Her photo was, highly technical, let's say. The entire top half of the photo was negative space and showing off the location. Yeah, sure, I kinda got what she was saying because I was in school for photography too. Too bad we're selling pictures of people and not space. I explained to her that myself and my coworkers have been shooting the way the owner himself instructed us to, and she said, "I'm the manager here, not you." I don't know what he told you to do, but that's not what we're doing. Do it the way I tell you to, okay? The third week, I explained to my coworker that this is what the manager wanted, and he was confused as well. So we do it. We take these photos where the passengers are barely visible in the wallet photos, and half the photos are negative space. Sales plummeted, to no surprise from anyone but the manager and owner. I got a phone call from the owner asking if there were fewer passengers or something, and told him it was normal. He asked why sales were down at night as well, to which I told him I had no idea because I was never scheduled to work at night anymore. He wasn't sure how to take that, but we left it at that. The next week, the owner called me to inform me that the new manager had agreed to mutually terminate her employment there, and then asked why we were having so much trouble. I told him everything she told us to do and that scheduling was bad since it left us understaffed for night cruises. It turns out she was instructed to hire new employees for the season, and she ignored every single applicant because they had no formal photography education. So basically, knowing full well it would hurt sales to not tell the owner that the manager just wasn't good at sales photography, I just waited until she got in trouble for turning up losses because she pulled, "You do what I say, I don't care." Sorry, Jay. And our last story. What better way to say F you than to dissolve HOA entirely, right? So a handful of years back, a family friend used to live in an HOA. One month, the board sent a notice around that they'd voted without any resident input to update the aesthetics of the neighborhood and required all street-facing walls to be repainted one of the 3 colors that they had chosen. Naturally, the residents were incensed that their dues would be used for what amounted to a demonstration of power and a vanity project. The HOA claimed the move fell under their authority to preserve the upkeep and maintenance of the neighborhood. However, while actually reading the bylaws to see if the board had the authority to enforce such renovations, one of her neighbors noticed that the HOA could be dissolved if the motion was brought, seconded, and approved by some fraction, let's go with 2/3, majority vote of all the residents. Fast forward to next month. Virtually all the residents attended, which made the board uneasy because meetings were typically only attended by a handful of people who had specific items of interest they wanted to be present for. The whole crowd sat quietly through the agenda, and when it came time to open up the floor for new motions, her neighbor brought the handbook to the podium and said, paraphrasing, "Neighbor, I motion to dissolve the HOA under Section X, subsection Y, paragraph Z. Family friend, I second that motion. Neighbor, all in favor? The whole room unanimously, aye. At this point, the board was sputtering, trying to figure out what had just happened. As job done, some of the residents had already started filing out. Apparently, it took a bit of time for neighbor to explain to the secretary the nature of the motion and the fact that the residents far surpassed the quorum and majority necessary for a legitimate vote. The secretary reviewed the handbook and told the chairperson that it was all according to the letter of the bylaws. The chairperson tried to bluster and tell the room that they had to come to order so they could discuss the matter further. Apparently, the neighbor told him something along the lines of, "Come to order to discuss what? The HOA meeting's over because there is no more HOA. We just dissolved it." I asked family friend if that was it. She said the chairperson ended up sending a letter around telling them that, "I recognize you're all very upset, but let's not make rash decisions," and that they could discuss making some changes to the renovation plans. But it was right there on the record. The HOA had been legitimately dissolved, so no one showed up or responded, and eventually the board gave up trying to regain power. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.